Welcome to Rainy Night Terrors. Close your eyes and let the rain carry you into the dark. During the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low, I found myself riding alone toward the melancholy house of Usher. I know not how it was, but with the first glimpse of the building, a sense of insufferable gloom pervaded my spirit. The windows were vacant. The walls bore the marks of a long dampness, and a barely perceptible fissure zigzagged from the roof to the black tarn below. I had been summoned by a letter from my childhood friend, Roderick Usher, the last male of his ancient line. He spoke of acute bodily illness, a mental disorder that oppressed him, and of an earnest desire to see me. I found him much changed, cadaverously pale, lips colorless, eyes of unearthly luster. His sister, the Lady Madeline, suffered from a mysterious wasting disease, cataleptic trances that left her as one dead. One evening, Roderick informed me that Madeline was no more. Together we carried her coffin to a vault deep beneath the house, a small, damp dungeon where the air was heavy and foul. As we secured the lid, I noticed a faint blush upon her cheek and a lingering smile. Yet we sealed her in. Days passed. Roderick grew more relentless, his eyes wild. He wandered the halls at night, whispering of sounds, faint, distant sounds from beneath the floors. On a stormy evening, wind howling like a dying soul, I sat with him in his chamber. To calm his nerves, I read aloud from an old romance, the clash of shields, the creak of a gate, the roar of a dragon. With every sound I read, the same noise echoed faintly from below, metallic, scraping, muffled. Roderick's eyes were fixed upon the door. "She is standing outside," he whispered. "Did I not tell you that my senses were acute? I tell you, she now stands beyond the door." The door slowly opened. There, drenched in blood, in the torn shroud of the grave, stood the Lady Madeline of Usher. With a low moan, she fell heavily inward upon her brother. In the violent and final death agonies, she bore him to the floor, a corpse. Horror struck. I fled from the room, down the ancient staircases into the storm. Behind me I heard a wild cry, then a tremendous crash as the mighty walls rushed asunder. A blood-red moon shone through the widening fissure, and the deep, dank tarn closed sullenly and silently over the fragments of the house of Usher. House and family, one organism. When the last Usher died, so did the house. True, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous I had been, and am. But why will you say I'm mad? The disease has sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object, there was none. Passion, there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, one of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. Every night around midnight, I turned the latch of the door and opened it, oh so gently, and then, when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed so that no light had shone out, and then I thrust in my head. For 7 long nights, I did this at midnight. And for 7 long nights, the eye was always closed. And so it was impossible to do the work. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. A watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers, of my sagacity. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph, to think that there I was, opening the door, little by little, and he not even dreaming of my secret deeds. I had my head in and was about to open the lantern when my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I did not move a muscle. In the meantime, I heard him lie down again and fall asleep. Midnight had passed. I opened the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously, and a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and then I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. And then I heard a slight groan. It was not a groan of pain or grief. Oh no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Now the old man knew that death was approaching. I felt my fury growing, but still I waited. And then a new sound. A low, dull, quick sound, like a watch enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It grew louder, louder. The old man's terror must have been extreme. The beating grew quicker and louder every instant. Do you mark me well? I have told you that I am nervous. So I am. And now, in the dead hour of night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, this sound drove me to uncontrollable terror. I leaped into the room. He shrieked once, only once. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. The heart beat on, faintly. Then it ceased. The old man was dead. I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, the arms, and the legs. And then I took up 3 planks from the flooring and deposited all between the scantlings. I replaced the boards so cleverly that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatsoever. When I had made end of these labors, it was 4 o'clock, still dark as midnight. A knock at the street door, 3 police officers. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play. They had come to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentlemen welcome. I took them through the house. I brought chairs into the old man's very chamber and desired them to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which lay the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied. My manner had convinced them. I was singularly at ease. But then, I began to hear something. A ringing in my ears at first. Then, a low, dull, quick sound, much like a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath. I talked more quickly, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor with heavy strides. I foamed. I raved. I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards. But the noise arose over all and had continually increased. It grew louder, louder, and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? No, they heard. They suspected. They knew. They were making a mockery of my horror. I could bear it no longer. "Villains," I shrieked. "Dissemble no more. I admit the deed. Tear up the planks. Here, it is the beating of his hideous heart. The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. It was about dusk one evening, during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, where he had been drinking too much. The man wore a tight-fitting party-striped dress and the conical cap and bells. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, but I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible. And in the middle of the carnival?" "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you. Come, let us go to your vaults." "I have bought it, but I must have your expert opinion." He looked into my eyes with two filmy orbs that distilled the rem of intoxication. "Come," I said, "we will go to your vaults." We descended into the catacombs of the Montresors, long, winding passages. The wine sparkled in his eyes, and the bells upon his cap jingled as I led him deeper. At the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared a small recess. I chained him to the granite, 2 iron staples and a short chain. He was too stunned to resist. I began to wall up the entrance, brick by brick, tier by tier. The work was quick. From within the niche arose a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. Then a succession of loud and shrill screams. For a moment I paused, my trowel trembling. Then I continued. There came a sad voice I scarcely recognized. "The Amontillado?" "Yes," I said, "the Amontillado." A low moaning cry, then silence. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth only the jingling of bells. For half a century no mortal has disturbed them. In pace, requiescat. May he rest in peace. A revenge served colder than the grave. If you've enjoyed these tales, consider subscribing for more short stories told in the rain. Twice a week. Until next time, sleep well.